Hey, this is Notser, and we are in the ship Udaloi on the map Trap. This game is very interesting. You're going to want to watch it the whole way. I'm not going to ruin anything. But it's not the reason for the video. The reason for the video is to answer a question, or pose a question, if you will. In my Twitch stream chat, at the very end, was a question asked of me, and I could not answer it. I really couldn't answer it. I thought for a long time, 20, 30, 40 minutes, I couldn't answer it, and I felt bad. So I wanted to make a video and discuss it and get your input. Now the question is, why would I choose a French cruiser line over the Soviet destroyer line? It's a good question, right? Why would I play in a French cruiser when I have a Soviet destroyer of equal tier? I really couldn't answer it. And you know why I couldn't answer it? Because I wouldn't play a French cruiser over a Soviet destroyer. Hell, I wouldn't play most cruisers over a Soviet destroyer because the Soviet destroyers provide better DPS than pretty much any cruiser line. The only thing you're missing out on is utility, radar, good effective hydroacoustic, good hydroacoustic at all. They're not German. Good effective defensive fire. You don't have those in the Soviet lines, but what you do have is a very, very fast destroyer. The fastest in the game, by the way. So fast that they are faster than any French cruiser under speed boost, period. Every single tier is outpaced by the base speed of the Soviet destroyers. You could just easily swap in defensive fire, swap out speed boost, and still be faster in the alternative line. And you're going to be doing more DPS on average. You'll be tanking more damage on average. You'll be more supportive of your team on average. The Soviet destroyer line is just a better cruiser line. And I think it's a better cruiser line than most cruisers. And that's not good. You know, some people are like, you take forever to get to the point. It's not good. That's the point. I really like the play style of the Soviet destroyers, but I think they are rewarded too much for that play style, both in potential damage that they protect their team from and the damage output that they do themselves. I think that both of those numbers are too high. It's one of those lines where you can outskill your opponent. You can absolutely make your opponent look completely silly. And there's not a lot of lines that are like that in this particular game. In this game, a line generally loses to its weakest class, or it's the class that's strongest against it. Generally, a cruiser is going to beat a destroyer. Generally, a battleship is going to absolutely obliterate a cruiser, and this is partly why cruisers are so bad, I think. Why would I pick a cruiser when all I'm going to do is risk the ship? There are always going to be battleships, tons of battleships in the queue. It's the most played class, and I'm very weak against that as a cruiser captain. I don't really like that. Who likes that, right? You know what I'm going to do the first time I see French cruisers in the game? Kill them. Just go kill them. They have no armor. And they have a citadel. A very easy citadel to penetrate. Very easy. There's just not a good reason to play French cruisers. There's not a good reason to play any cruiser over the Soviet destroyer line. The Soviet destroyer line provides the DPS output, provides the tankability, and is still going to live at the end of the game to counter the enemy destroyers, maybe get to objective play. It's very hard for cruisers and battleships to play the objective. Even the worst Soviet destroyer is leaps and bounds better at playing the objective than any cruiser could hope to play it as. So, yeah, the French cruiser line, there's not enough good there. There's not enough good. Maybe they could give the cruiser lines just globally more utility. Always make sure that every single cruiser line has at least 3 modules deep of utility that you could equip to the ship. That's part of the reason why I think cruisers are so weak, is that they've started to give utility to other classes, like the battleship, like the destroyers, and there's really no reason to bring a cruiser. There's not enough good there. Their DPS output is not impressive at all. They can't stealth fire anymore. They might as well not even have concealment a lot of times. They might as well get maneuverability, because they're going to get shot all the time. It's a very interesting topic. And yes, it started out discussing the French cruiser line, but what it ultimately is addressing is it fair for a destroyer line to be so effective when cruisers can't even touch that effectiveness in combat? I mean, a destroyer can do things that a cruiser can never do. It's much smaller. It has way better concealment. The worst concealment on a destroyer is basically equal to the best concealment on a cruiser. You would have to sacrifice a hell of a lot of skills to capture that with a cruiser, whereas with the destroyer, you don't need to sacrifice anything to get great concealment. It's like baked in. They all have smoke. All the ones who don't have smoke are really nimble. The Soviet destroyer line, in particular, has a velocity that is second to none. I think there's only 2 or 3 classes in the game with better velocity, or 2 or 3 lines. I think that's the Soviet cruiser. Obviously, the Soviet cruiser is going to be better than the Soviet destroyers. And I want to say the Germans. I think the Germans have better velocity. And that's it. That's it. I think what they've done is they've made the Soviet destroyers too good at killing. They're too nimble. The potential damage that they can tank is fantastic. Maybe, this would be insane, maybe we need to consider the possibility that the Soviet destroyers need a citadel. That would be a little dangerous, right? But is it dangerous when you really look at their role? What is their role? Do DPS at mid to long range, really harass people, dot them up, sometimes use your torpedoes. If you're not paying attention, you'll take a damaging shot from a Grosse Kur first. But I definitely survive damage way better than any cruiser could ever do. It's a really big issue. I think it's a really big issue if you want to continue to incorporate different classes or different lines in the game that don't exist. If you're trying to justify why play the French cruisers, I can't justify it. I can't tell you a good reason why you should play this over anything else. You know, if I was looking at the American cruiser, radar, defensive fire, their ability to AA protect and radar, that's enough to play it. The Soviets, radar. Long-range gunnery is superior. Now, you will take way more damage than a destroyer, but you're going to dish out a lot. For the Germans, they've got... why pick a German cruiser over a destroyer? Their torpedoes are okay. They do have a lot of torpedoes when you compare it to a destroyer. It does have better AA protection, almost double the average, which is nice. But hydroacoustic's cool. You can't really have defensive fire and hydroacoustic, so you have to decide. I kind of wish they would give hydroacoustic just a base skill to the Germans so they could take both. I think that would be a fair thing for them to add to the skill. I mean, what does hydroacoustic really compete with? It allows you to be aggressive. That's pretty much it. Is that such a bad skill to put globally on a cruiser? Maybe on a battleship, but on a cruiser? What's wrong with that? That could push it too far in their eyes. I just don't understand why you would shy away from making sure that cruisers have at least the potential to do the highest DPS. Now they're going to have to maneuver, avoid battleships are going to kill them so quickly, and the most utility of any class in the game. I don't know why you continue to offer free utility to some things and rip away other utility skills. Is it too complicated? Maybe it's too complicated. That's the real thing. It's too complicated, Notser. We only can have 2 to 3 skills on every single ship. That's all we can. That's all we can deal with. Well, if you do that, and you give every single ship 2 to 3, you're not really giving them a lot of leeway to be utility focused. That's what I worry about. I was interested in discussing the idea that French cruisers they don't have a place. They're basically really big, vulnerable destroyers that do less damage. That's their role. The Soviet destroyer is faster, more nimble, does more damage, can play the objective better, smaller, better concealment. You give up range, but you can move back into range easily, because you're so much faster than everything. I kind of would like them to address the German cruisers, because I think the German cruisers are much more reasonable. You know what you could do for the Germans? Just allow them to have hydroacoustic baseline. Don't let it compete with any other skill. And I think the German cruisers would be perfect. I think that would be perfect for the German cruisers. As far as French cruisers are concerned, man, I don't know what you do. They can't compete with the destroyer and its ability to tank damage and dish it out. They just can't, because they have a citadel. They could compete with the utility. They could bring a lot of utility to the game, and I think that you need to do that globally for cruisers. I just think, maybe the cruiser is the crafty ship line, where you've got the perfect solution, but it might be on cooldown. I just feel like there are too many battleships, and it's too easy to be successful in the Soviet destroyer line. So they're getting it from both sides. They're just not effective enough to justify you playing it. And this is a bad thing to hear when a new line's about to come out. You're going, oh man, I'm excited. Definitely be excited to play them, but I wouldn't say that they're worth grinding. They still have a lot of issues. They still just don't compete. And that's more of a broader issue with cruisers, but especially the French cruisers. You could go directly to the Soviet destroyer line and say, this is a better version of everything you're trying to do. And it's true. It is absolutely true. I can't deny it. They tank better, they do more damage better, they're more nimble, they get around the map quicker. They are better than the French cruiser line. I hope this was interesting. I hope you have a fantastic day, and I'll catch you next time.